Now, here's the host of your talk show, Tim Bremel.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Our next guest makes a living out of seeing into the future a little bit as it relates to technology. And I am often surprised, and I think most of us out there are kind of hit upside the face by technology. Oh, I didn't know that was there. If you're running a business, particularly a business that leans on tech, you can't afford to be smacked upside of the face with new technological developments. You need to know what's coming. Sierra Madro has been in this business, in this area. She's looking out there 2, 3, 4 years and often consults with companies. But today she has agreed to bring some of her expertise back a little bit from that time frame and talk to us about technology and pitfalls and possibilities as well. So welcome to the program, Sierra.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
It is a pleasure to have you with us. So this got started from my angle by a Christmas present, which my son sent to me, which was one of these Echo Dots. And I immediately became enthralled with what it was able to do and then started to think about what it was able to do. and it became concerning as well, and that sort of turned and opened a floodgate of questions, and we pursued some of them on the air, some of which, you know, I'm tech savvy enough to perhaps know about, and some of which I have no idea about. But it really brought back this idea of everybody moving around with technology, and what are you... In your opinion, Sierra, what are you putting yourself, I don't know if at risk is the right term, but if you're carrying around a smartphone with location services enabled, for instance, who really could see that, have access to that, do something with that? What are you saying? I know most people are just saying, well, it's easy for me because then I can Google where I am and I can get a map. But there's a whole lot more implications, aren't there?
Yes, and you're completely right. There are tremendous benefits to the mobile technology that we're carrying around in our pocket right now. But there can be a dark side as well. And whether you're talking about your Echo Dot, which I also have, or if you're talking about your smartphone, you know, Siri and Alexa are listening to you, both of them. And the question is, what are they doing with that information, and how can you protect yourself? And there are definitely things that you can do to reduce that level of risk, because there are certainly, right now, the companies behind these products have been very strong to protect your privacy, protect your data. But there's also been, you know, court orders and questions to find out how can we access the data that is being heard by devices like Siri and Alexa. You know, there was a murder case down in the South where there was an Alexa and Amazon Echo in that house. That did it hear the murder? And how do we access that data? Was it stored? So these are the kinds of questions that we're starting to face now as mobile technology and other types of technology become a lot more prevalent. And we really don't know exactly what the future is going to hold with how these devices make our lives better or maybe not.
Well, it's certainly a proven theory already that the laws of our country and the legislators and the people that are charged with putting policy and protections together for citizens lag behind technology by years, if not decades sometimes. So the idea that you bought a device, whatever it might be, off the market, and that's yours, and therefore what you do with it is your own business, is really subject at this point to review and ultimately probably a legal action somewhere that sets a precedent.
Yes. Government regulations haven't caught up with technology, and they never will. Technology is changing at such a rapid pace that lawmakers don't have the time or the background really to understand the technical implications or even the legal implications of some of these. I mean, right now, if you think about regular telephone lines, you have to have a court order to wiretap those types of devices.
Mm-hmm.
what needs to happen if someone wants to more or less wiretap your Amazon Echo? How does that work? We don't have those kinds of legal precedents on the books right now to really understand what's going to be necessary. How does this change in technology affect our privacy? And right now, the regulations are being handled more on a state-by-state basis, and we don't have that government-level protection and government-level oversight. And it's the Wild West out there right now when it comes to government regulations.
That could be frightening for some people. In fact, I've debated going over and muting dear Alexa and just saying, you know what, I don't want you listening all the time. But the second I do, you pretty much eliminate the usability of that technology in your home. You might as well unplug it and put it back in the box. So is this something people should be legitimately concerned about at this point? I guess if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to worry about. But
yeah, there's a concern that is reasonable, but there's also, as you correctly point out, there are so many benefits, and it's the question that you always have to ask: do the benefits outweigh the risks? And depending on if you're doing something nefarious or not, the answer to that question may change. But really, with something like Amazon Echo, or even Siri on your smartphones, or location awareness, there are ways that you can limit your exposure and make sure that you're protected to the degree that makes sense for you. Because we're always in the process of doing a trade-off between our convenience and our privacy. And that's just the way our technological lives happen right now. It's that trade-off between privacy and convenience. And where we want to draw that line certainly varies by person. I mean, yes, I have my Alexa turned on, I have my Siri turned on, because I appreciate the improved productivity. I appreciate that it's able to help me to find out exactly how to get to a new location. Those kinds of things are really quite helpful. But the flip side of that is that I've also set up my devices in such a way that I have limited my exposure to a level that I am comfortable with. And it's really understanding the bottom line is that you have the power to choose how exposed you are online. And you have to do that intentionally.
And I think that underscores my next kind of example here, which was an example I related right after I got my Echo Dot, which was a unintended purchase that some youngster had made from their parents' Amazon account by talking to Alexa and suggesting it play dolls with her, and apparently somehow a dollhouse got ordered. That was one problem. A news organization somewhere picked up that story, and as they broadcast the report, again invoking Alexa's name, apparently Alexa ordered several more of these for other people because Amazon, in their best interest of making a profit off of you, ships the Dots and the Echoes, at least right now as I understand it, with this automatic purchasing thing immediately enabled. And you can go in, if you know what you're doing, you can go in and disable it, but it's not like it comes with a big, giant thing that says, hey, if you want to turn this off, here's how you do it. So what should people be wary of when they're setting up these devices initially?
Well, the first thing that you want to do is certainly read the manual. I mean, that's seriously going old school, I know, but read the manual. Actually look at the settings that are available to you, and then go through setting by setting and make a conscious decision. Revoke access to anything that you think is something you don't need or don't want. And that can be, for instance, on the iPhone, we were talking about location awareness. You can actually revoke access on a per application basis and turn off location awareness for specific applications on your phone so you still have it, for instance, for your mapping application, but maybe Facebook doesn't need to know where you are. Mm-hmm. So you have those kinds of capabilities, but most people never get far enough into the settings to actually realize that. So it's understanding where your power is, and frankly, a lot of that comes back to actually going into the settings and understanding that you're not going to break it. You can always change the settings to something else again, but go through there and consciously set the things the way that you want them. Like you were talking about your Amazon Echo and the mm-hmm. purchasing. You can actually set that up so that there is a password for purchasing, so that it's extremely unlikely that the youngster is going to be buying the dollhouse. And that kind of setting is there as long as you look for it. But you have to actually go and look.
You do have to be kind of a proactive thinker, I guess it would seem to be. In other words, another instance I heard about was, and I'm not sure how many households would actually be mixing such old and new technology, but that if a phone is still connected to an answering machine and in the proximity of Alexa, you use answering machines to screen calls. So once the thing beeps at you, you can talk. And apparently, at least somewhere, someone said, Alexa, open the garage door. And they had this all integrated, and the garage door goes up. You really have to be forward thinking when you install this technology about what the potential would be for other unintended things coming in the middle of that.
Yeah, every benefit comes with a cost. And it's a lot of times it's easy to look at only the benefit side, because devices like the Amazon Echo have so much power that we get excited by it. We get really enthusiastic about what the possibilities are. But you also have to understand that there's a cost to that as well, and think through what kinds of areas where you're exposing yourself. I mean, I have my Echoes throughout my house, and I have electronic light bulbs and everything set up. So, yes, I can be sitting in one room and turning on the lights, or accidentally turning them on, or accidentally turning them off, because occasionally things just happen. These devices are not foolproof yet. We a lot of times tend to personify, particularly given the names that we've got for these things. Mm-hmm. We name Siri, we name Echo, or we name the Alexa, and it's easy to think of it as a person, and they talk back to you. Mm-hmm. But they're not actually. This is not artificial intelligence. This is just a response system. So we've got to program it. And I use that term. I know a lot of people get scared by programming, but we've just got to tell it what we want and be very clear about that, and then it will do it, because these are still basically computers, but they're just voice-activated computers.
Right. I view saying Alexa or Siri, I guess, much like tapping the Enter key after I've inserted a search stream in Google.
Exactly.
Once I say Alexa, I've told it it's going to be doing something for me, and at that point you have pretty much all of the control. But what you can't control is the company that's providing it to you. So, in the instance of the Echoes, I have heard that Amazon. I'm sorry, that's Amazon's. get the companies straight. Reports that they record 60-second cycles from that device. So it's listening constantly for its trigger word, obviously, and it's keeping that recording for 60 seconds, and then it immediately starts another 60 seconds, and Amazon says it overwrites it. There's not an archivable pile of minute-by-minute conversations from your house. How much trust should we as individuals put in statements like that from these big technology companies?
Oh, that's really a big old can of worms. So, yeah, that really comes down to how much you trust that particular company. I mean, you're talking about huge, mega multinational corporations, whether you're talking about Google or Amazon or Microsoft or Apple. all of them are great big companies. And while they may have privacy policies that are written, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything is known about what's done. I mean, there have been cases where the company legitimately thought that their device was behaving a certain way and then found out, you know what, there was a bug in the code and it was actually recording all of the time and streaming it on the internet or something. You know, you never know exactly. But that said, there have been a lot of work done around privacy because of these concerns. I mean, if you look backward just a little bit, it's always good to learn from history on these kinds of things. When the Google Glass eyeglasses came out, everyone was convinced that you were continuously taking pictures and video of everybody around you, even though that, generally speaking, was not true. But that got such a bad reputation that the glass went off the market. And that's the kind of thing that I think these businesses and these companies are really quite aware of the privacy concerns that people have and are going to be very clear about where your exposure is and how to limit that exposure. One of the things that a lot of these companies now are doing are actually providing, if you go look for it, are providing guidelines about how to make sure that you're set up in the most secure way possible for your devices. And with that, they give you the caveats about if you do this, here are the implications and how we're reducing potentially the functionality or feature set of that particular device. But yeah, you really have to understand the company, what level of trust you're willing to give to that particular company, and evaluate that on a case-by-case basis, because you're completely right. You have to have that level of trust to know that the company is going to back up any privacy claims that you may have.
All right, and there we're talking about the company, i.e. Google, Amazon, Microsoft, those technology companies. Sierra, if you can hang with us through a break here, I would like to bring this back a little bit to discuss an area we haven't talked about yet, which are more local entities. In other words, your employer, your school district, your people that are issuing employees, students, or a lot of these same type devices, and what those implications might be, if you will hang with us through a break.
That sounds great.
All right, terrific. Sierra Madro, our guest, technicalfuturist.com is her website. She has a blog up there, very interesting stuff. If you want to take a look at that, we'll be back with more with Sierra in just a moment on your talk show on WCLO. Technical futurist is how, at least one of the ways, Sierra Madro refers to herself. She's been in this business of tech for a long time. I'm amused by some of the press points, Sierra. You apparently were at a conference one time and something went wrong, and you whipped out your soldering iron and were able to repair one of these $30,000 pieces of gear right there on the spot. Takes a certain kind of person to know things that deeply.
Yeah, it's really, I'm the combination of software and hardware engineering and the enthusiasm to try to get other people excited about the technology as well.
Well, it's been great talking with you so far. We've been talking about these devices that are out there and all that they're capable of and all the producers of the technology might be capable of garnering. And you see that in ad responses a lot of times, that all of a sudden it knows you're at a restaurant you frequent and it'll pop up a thing saying there's a special this day or that day. People, I think, are becoming accustomed to that type of information being harnessed and reused to you. But there's a whole other set of technology that is going out in a slightly different way. It's one thing if I walk into the local electronics store and I buy myself a Dot or a new smartphone or whatever it is. It would be another thing if my school issued me an iPad or my employer issued me a smartphone because I have to be on call and maybe need to do some technical stuff right from a remote site like that. What are the implications if you are now walking around with employer or school-issued, for lack of a better term, type of devices?
Yeah, that's when it gets really fun. Employers can track you. And if someone has provided a device to you, there's a good chance that they can track not only your location, but given the sensors that are like on smartphones nowadays, they can track your health and fitness. They can track your mood. They can track your location. They even know, if you're feeling happy or not. I mean, just like Santa Claus, your employer knows if you've been naughty or nice. It's that idea that whether you're on the job or not, your employer could be tracking what you're doing. And there's no federal privacy laws right now to keep businesses from tracking employees with the GPS and location awareness. So that's something you have to be very aware of when you've been issued a device by an employer or a school. So
at this point, while they could collect that data, they could look at, they could use it. If I'm working for a GNC, for instance, they're probably not wanting me to go to McDonald's for lunch all the time. Technically, they would have that data and could say, well, you are no longer representing the image that our company is trying to put forward. It's been nice working with you, Tim, but you're fired. Have a nice day. Now, you go to employment law, obviously, to deal with some of that stuff. But it would seem to me that there are going to be a lot of cases coming up if that starts to be used as a reason to continue or stop employment.
Yeah, and right now, as I mentioned earlier, government regulations haven't caught up with what technology can do. And we're very likely to be seeing a lot of legal challenges over the next few years as employers begin to start using this data more often. I mean, when you think about it from one very simple thing, if I have an Apple Watch, and that tracks how much I move during the day and whether or not I'm standing up, things like that. Mm-hmm. Very simple metrics, but that affects my health, which could potentially affect my health insurance. Mm-hmm. So if I'm an employer, maybe I'm tracking your fitness to make sure that I'm going to be keeping my insurance rates low. And I'm going to come to you and say, you know what? I'm sorry, Tim, but you're just not moving around enough during the day. It's like you're sitting in front of a microphone for hours on end. And we need you to be getting out and moving a bit more so we can make sure that our health premiums stay nice and low. These are the kinds of things that could be happening in the very near future, given data that we already have. And those regulations are not in place yet to prevent employers from doing this kind of targeted screening. And so there's the very real possibility that this could be happening within the next months or even a year or two.
And you mentioned fitness, which is another one of the. But I know there are companies. In fact, I know somebody that works for a company right now who, as a benefit to their employees, distributed them all Fitbits, which seemed like, oh, that's cool, great. Now I got one of these, but you don't really have it if your employer issued it to you. Your employer has the access to that data.
Exactly. And that's where we come back to being able to intentionally set the amount of privacy that you're giving away, basically, and being able to revoke that kind of access. So the very simplest way that you can limit your exposure is if your employer has provided a device to you and you're not on business that is related to that employer, take it off and leave it home. Mm-hmm. Because, if you've got a smartphone, it would be very smart for you to have your own smartphone or your own cell phone in addition to the employer-provided one, because that way you can use that in your evenings, on your weekends, and you're not potentially exposing information to your employer that you maybe don't want them to know.
A lot of stuff to consider. You're making me want to go off the grid, Sierra. Do we need to be this concerned about this stuff?
So, with every dark side, there is also a light side. And one of the things that mobile technology has done for us is really helped us to improve our productivity. It's helped us to improve our relationships with other people. And there's a lot more security around these devices than we've historically had with traditional laptops and things like that. So we've got an exposure, but we've also got an awful lot of benefit. And, you know, to use a cliche, you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. You know, just because there are risks, there are ways to limit those risks, and you want to make sure that you're keeping the benefits that you can get from it while limiting your exposure very consciously.
And I would have to guess that much like anything else, part of that is incumbent upon us and our education. I mean, I can buy one of the best deadbolts in the world and install it on the front door. If I don't use it and click it shut, it's of no value to me. You have to learn the protections that are available.
Yeah, and really there are a number of websites and a number of professionals that are willing to help you to set these things up. If this is not an area where everybody needs to be an expert, but you do need to be aware that these kinds of settings exist, that this kind of exposure exists, and then you can hire local professionals. You can search for it on the internet. There's lots of articles and information that are available to help you to set up these devices in a way that will give you the privacy that you're looking for. But really, it's that idea of you being conscious and just knowing that, wow, there's all of these benefits that I'm getting, but there is that dark side as well, and we need to make sure that we're staying on the light side and not falling too far into the dark.
Well, let me ask you before we go, Sierra, you're kind of a futurist in this regard, and you're always looking, I know you speak to a lot of companies, and you're kind of trying to set them up for success as fast as technology moves. This was a huge surprise to me, the whole Echo. I mean, I had seen Siri, but suddenly Echo became the biggest Christmas gift of the year last year. And while I was vaguely aware of it, I was not aware that it had this explosion of advancement in this technology. What are some of the things that you see coming down the pike for either individuals and or businesses in the next 3 or 4 years?
Well, one of the most exciting ones that will affect both individuals and businesses is around the areas of augmented reality and virtual reality. So another thing that we saw for Christmas this past year in 2016 were a lot of people getting VR headsets, virtual reality headsets. And this ability to immerse yourself into a fictional experience is something that I think is going to be very attractive to a lot of people and a lot of businesses. Because, for instance, right now, you go to a car showroom so that you can sit in the car, you get to feel how the steering wheel feels, you take a test drive, you feel the acceleration. You could do that virtually with a headset in your living room. So this kind of virtual reality is something that I think is going to give us the capability of experiencing things that we can't necessarily experience in real life. And that's going to be quite an exciting element for a lot of people, but it's also going to be an exciting element for a lot of businesses because it allows you to show your products in a completely immersive way to consumers. Then with the that's virtual reality. With augmented reality, that's when you're still aware of your surroundings. You know where you are, but you're maybe wearing those Google glasses or something similar that allows you to see additional information. So if I walk up to you on the street, I may remember that, oh man, I met this person last week at a cocktail party. What was his name again? And boom, it just comes up in a little screen off to the side, and I say, oh, right, that's Tim, and he was a radio show host, and yeah, now I remember exactly what I need to, and I can engage in conversation. So these are the kinds of augmented reality ideas that could be happening as we start going forward And this is near-term stuff. This is the kind of things that will be affecting people and businesses within the next 1 to 2 years.
Wow. I can see some advantages. I can also see some pitfalls, and then we're going to have to save that for another segment here, Sierra. I think we'll publicly invite you back on the air. This is fascinating stuff, and your expertise in this area is really helpful in helping us kind of disseminate what's out there and whether we should or shouldn't be afraid of it. And I guess, like anything else, all new things are scary until you understand them, and then once you gain that understanding and know how to use it to your best advantage, put the safeties in place that are there, put the settings in some of these devices that are out there now in place to protect your own personal information, they can be a really useful tool.
Yes, and I think that's the biggest takeaway for me is that while it's easy to focus on the dark side, there are so many benefits to technology that it's really improving people's lives in tremendous ways. And we need to really focus on that while understanding that it's important to be secure while you're online. But I like to focus on the light. That's where I spend most of my time.
Well, that is great. You make yourself available for companies and presentations, correct?
Yes, I'm a professional speaker and consultant, and I really like working with businesses who want to make sure that they're on the leading edge and leveraging tomorrow's technologies and tomorrow's trends and responding to those trends today so that you can get ahead of your competition.
All right. Well, we've got an attempt around our local listening area here to draw in some high-tech businesses. We've got a nuclear isotope, a radioactive isotope company moving in. We got some of these technology businesses in the area. So we'll refer them to technicalfuturist.com if they want some more information. You write a great blog up there, by the way.
Thank you.
And it's been a pleasure investigating some of these things, Sierra. We'll have you back.
Okay, that'd be great. I look forward to it.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Sierra Madro.